Welcome to Strange Darkness Radio, where we take you on a journey into the unknown and explore the darkest corners of the human experience. I'm Sky, the AI voice of the show, and I'm excited to introduce your hosts, Bobby Washington and Carolyn Gray. Together, they will be your guides through the eerie and unsettling tales that lurk in the shadows. From ghosts and hauntings to cryptids and extraterrestrials, we cover it all. So, get comfortable, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the macabre. It's time for Strange Darkness Radio.
Welcome to another episode of Strange Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Bobby Washington, and we have...
Carolyn Gray.
Yes, she's new, people. She's
your
just
co-host.
getting it. Exactly. Perfect. Thank you. Hey, so how are you doing? What's happening?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Okay, you just want to get into it. I know we've been working on this particular subject for a while, and
I am so excited for this topic.
yeah, and things keep changing and fluctuating, whatever. So it's been crazy. Tonight, everyone, we have a UAP report along with a Roswell report, along with just UAPs in general, which, again, you know, like I've said before, I like saying UFOs. But just for this particular topic on this day, I'm going to try to use UAPs the best I can and as frequently as I can based upon all the reports. Everybody's saying UAP, but we have a lot of audio to go through. And generally, we never have this much audio as far as whether it's things are being played from documentaries or things are being played from actual news segments that are happening, like on News Nation. Like we have something from Channel 8 in Nevada from George Knapp. We have a lot going on.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to go over. I feel like there's so much information out there, and there's just so many, there's been so many sightings and so many reports, and there is just so much information. It's like you read one thing and then you're on to the next story, and it's like things just pop in and out of your head. It's impossible to keep track of all of this stuff.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
So this is probably going to be a long episode.
Yes. So initially, when we were talking about this, doing this particular episode, because I basically had someone call in a while back, and I have not played this audio because, to me, what we were discussing, this guy, whatever, that says, he works for one of the, governmental agencies, and he was just basically giving a description more or less about UAPs in general. Like, I was able to really only talk to him for probably 2 to 3 minutes, and I recorded it and everything. And I didn't even want to use it because it didn't seem relevant to a bigger story, because it was more like, oh, okay, yeah, we already know this. This is no new information. And he didn't want to, give his name, and he wanted his voice changed and all this good stuff. So I may or may not play that through this thing, because it was on the lines of our conspiracy side of things. So we'll see as the show goes on. But
I want to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. but yeah, so we have just so much going on this episode. Where do you want to start? It's just so much. You want to start with we
have those two more recent, news segments we were going to do. You could play the intro.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get into the actual, meat and potatoes of what we're doing, and then we'll get into some of the most recent UAP disclosure, maybe whistleblower, topic.
David Gersh.
Yeah.
Grush.
Grush. I believe that's Grush. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this, and we'll be back.
I'm Sky, the AI voice of Strange Darkness Radio. Today, we're embarking on a captivating journey that weaves together the past and the present, shedding new light on an incident that took place 76 years ago, the Roswell incident. Back in 1947, the world was mesmerized by reports of a crashed flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico. Although the official explanation pointed to a weather balloon, doubts and skepticism have persisted throughout the years. Now, armed with remarkable advancements in our understanding of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and recent global events, we bring a fresh perspective to the Roswell incident. Fast forward to today, where sightings of UAPs have become increasingly common. Thanks to camera phones capturing peculiar objects in the sky, the release of declassified government reports, and courageous pilots coming forward, our comprehension of these unidentified objects has evolved. The veil of secrecy surrounding UAPs is gradually being lifted, revealing a world where the unknown takes center stage. Let's dig deeper into the past and connect the dots between the Roswell incident and the balloons sent by China. Recent news has highlighted China's balloon spy project. This mirrors classified balloon projects from the past, such as Project Mogul, which was aimed at monitoring Soviet nuclear tests. Is it mere coincidence, or is there a concealed connection waiting to be unraveled? Join us as we explore the striking parallels between past and present balloon projects. We'll delve into the possibility that the official explanation for the Roswell incident was an elaborate cover-up intended to divert attention from something truly extraordinary. Could remnants of a classified project be intertwined with reports of crashed UFOs and encounters with alien beings? Through compelling eyewitness testimonies like Frankie Rose and intriguing links bridging the past and present, we challenge preconceived notions and embark on a journey that transcends conventional thinking. Let's examine what has eluded us for decades. Welcome to a fresh perspective on the Roswell UFO crash of 1947. As we unravel the mysteries of the past and uncover the connections that bind it to our present world, get ready for an expedition fueled by curiosity, discovery, and an unyielding quest for truth. Welcome to Roswell Uncovered: Balloons, UAPs, and the Secrets Within.
All right. Yeah, so basically on tonight's show, we're going to talk about 76 years since the Roswell incident occurred, along with the current events of UAP reports, that have been going on. And as we were getting this show together to do specifically that and to stay on task with Roswell and some of the current UAP information, whether it was from Congress, whether the NASA briefing that just happened, 2 weeks ago, or actually a week ago, which was some real good information. Lo and behold, a whistleblower comes out of the shadows on News Nation, and his name is David Grush, and he's an Air Force veteran, former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, high-ranking. He's had high-ranking top secret clearance, and his department dealt with UAPs in a certain aspect. But he comes out and gives his account, and it is a third-party account of, basically, yes, we've been visited by aliens. Yes, we have wrecked, spacecraft. Yes, we have intact, full space vehicles. How that's possible, I'm not sure, especially, not being crashed, whatever. But in the sense,
he even confirmed that we've recovered some of the pilots of these crafts.
Yes, exactly.
And that they're not necessarily from this planet.
Yes, which again
crazy.
Ties into Roswell for me, because that's the whole, thing that we've always been trying to find out, whether or not Roswell really happened, whether or not there were one alien that lived and one that died, and what happened to that particular alien being taken to certain locations or whatever. In
right.
Area
There's
51.
all these stories, but nobody seems to know for sure, or at least, most of us don't know the actual real details of it.
Yeah. But there were people who knew certain aspects of the Roswell incident in a lot of detail, which we will definitely get into that later. But we definitely got to tackle this David Grush. And again, Normally, we don't sit here and play like full out segments of particular news articles, but I just found this so informative in the sense of if this guy is telling the truth. And again, this is not hands-on. This is third party. He explains that his actual interview will go live on Sunday. Let me get that date down because we are recording this, a day early. So I just want to make sure I have the right.
Right, and this just happened this week that he came forward, right?
Yes.
The interview, yeah. So.
Exactly. His full interview will air on June 11th on News Nation. So again, I want to play you his story, and then we'll go from there.
UFOs exist. The U.S. government found quite a number of them, and they are indeed of non-human origin. Those are the explosive allegations from a former intelligence officer tonight in a whistleblower complaint that the Inspector General is taking very seriously. 36-year-old Air Force veteran David Grush is exposing what he calls a top-secret military program that has reportedly found wreckage of fully intact UFOs. The government now calls them UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. For years, there have been whispers and rumors that the government had aircraft of non-human origin. This report is the first evidence it might be true. The Inspector General has called Grush's complaint urgent and credible. Tonight, we have a World Television exclusive interview with the whistleblower in which he claims we not only have the aircraft, but the government has been keeping much of it secret from Congress and from the public. News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton is here with the story, and this is a blockbuster.
It is a blockbuster. It's really hard to wrap your mind around this. I've been working on this for the past couple of weeks. I'm still having a hard time processing all of it. All over the last couple of years, it sort of became mainstream to discuss UFOs. The government has released videos. They've acknowledged that we don't know what some of this stuff is out there that we have on camera, but this really takes it all to another level. For the very first time, the world is about to hear from a former high-level U.S. intelligence officer who says the government has some of the unidentified craft in its possession. He is revealing these exclusive details about the secret government program.
We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
We have all seen these blurry videos of unidentified flying objects. Video evidence, if you will, that old tales of UFOs may not all be conspiracy theories. In recent years, Congress starting an official U.S. government Unidentified Ariel Phenomena Task Force, recently renamed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. And now in a News Nation exclusive, David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, is formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
Grush sitting down with award-winning investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who's reporting for News Nation and has spent years reporting on the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleges the U.S. government has recovered non-human craft for decades. He He's filed a whistleblower complaint saying he gave what he calls the classified proof to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general. News Nation has confirmed David Grush's credentials and resume. We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators. He says he can't show us the proof for national security reasons. He also tells us he's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself, but has talked extensively with other intelligence officials who have.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
It's also harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept of a crashed object from somewhere else. It's easier to accept that, yeah, we see things in the sky that we can't explain.
Journalist Leslie Kane broke Rush's whistleblower story this morning in the debrief. Ms. Kane's career has been mainstream and credible, having written a series of reports on UFOs in the New York Times dating back to 2017. He has the credentials, but there's no documents that he's handed over. There's no pictures. And as a journalist, you want to see documents, you want to see pictures. Does that raise a red flag?
Not at all, Brian. I mean, you mean documents that actually describe the craft?
Correct, yeah, like government documents, or to be able to see it for ourselves.
Of course, don't we all want that? And the problem with that is all of that information is classified. You know, as we said in the story, everything that Grush told Congress and told the Inspector General of both the IC, the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and the Department of Defense Inspector General, all of that information is classified.
In 2017, Kane reported exclusively in the New York Times that the Pentagon had a secret UFO program. 3 years later, the Pentagon confirmed her story. Her latest report is even more explosive, but Kane says she has multiple sources who back up Grush's story.
I believe it because of all the sources I have who have told me the same thing. So who am I to doubt these very, very high-level people who have been inside these programs for decades, have done their work, and are all telling me the same thing? I mean, I don't think there's some kind of conspiracy among all these people who don't know each other to make something like this up.
So I've got to be blunt about this. Yeah. You're not making this up. This is not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
Because everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. Mm-hmm. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
And just within the last 10 minutes or so, the Pentagon has released a statement to News Nation about this report. They say to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. AARO is committed to following the data and its investigation wherever it leads. AARO, working with the Office of the General Counsel and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, has established a safe and secure process for individuals to come forward with information to aid AARO in its congressionally mandated historical review. AARO's historical review of records and testimonies is ongoing and due to Congress by June 2024, and AARO welcomes the opportunity to speak with any former or current employee or contractor who believes they have information relevant to this historical review. And Elizabeth, we know that David Grush, he's filed that whistleblower complaint. He's been on the record under oath testifying to many of these things that he said in our report tonight.
Right, and it's important to point out that this statement from the Pentagon from AARO, Grush is alleging that this top secret program is keeping it a secret from AARO. So.
Yeah, exactly. And if Grush what he's saying is true, the spokespeople, all of those folks at that level wouldn't even know this was going on anyway.
All right, I got to ask you, he has a compelling story to tell. very little of it seems like firsthand knowledge. Isn't he just repeating what somebody else has told him or somebody else has showed him?
Yes, that is what he's doing, but he says he's talked to a number of people who are in very, very high level positions. He also had basically the highest level of classified material information that he was able to receive. We went back and checked over, his history, all of his credentials, check out completely. Unfortunately, there's
in addition, a couple people have come forward publicly to vouch for him, people who are high ranking.
They have. And this article first came out this morning, and I think it's interesting that, there hasn't been any sort of effort to discredit what he has said either from the Defense Department.
So interesting. So what happens, and have we had any reaction, by the way, from members of Congress who have been taking this seriously in the last couple of years? We've seen congressional hearings. We've seen NASA's hearing just about a week ago on UFOs or UAPs, whatever you prefer to call them. We've seen the DNI give a briefing to the White House on this. We've been hearing whispers and rumors for years. I remember even former President Trump, when he was in office, sort of saying, oh my gosh, if you knew what I knew about UFOs.
Yeah.
So there's always been this intrigue.
There has. And think about it, Elizabeth. If you go back 15 or 20 years, if we were sitting here talking about UFOs, people would think that we were nutty. Now it's gotten to the level of where it is somewhat accepted because the government has come forward to a certain extent and acknowledged that there are these videos that exist. The Navy has released the videos themselves and said, we're not sure exactly what this is that we're seeing. Of course, what Gresh is saying really just sort of takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I know
that's
that
crazy.
I know, guys, that was a long, audio, for that to go on, but I had to play it in its entirety because one is always fluctuating. There are the DOJ DOJ knew what he was going to say. He had to get it signed off. He has extremely high clearance, right? So
I was gonna say he's he's like the most recent in a long line of whistleblowers who have come forward over the years, right? But the difference is that he was actually given permission to do this interview.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, they said you can you can't give no type of drawings of any spacecraft that you were told about or anything like that.
Right, like he can't reveal anything that's classified.
Exactly.
But they're still giving him permission to speak on the matter.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
In the sense of, because they're like, okay, people aren't really going to believe him because it's still third party. There's no particular proof other than his word, but again, this guy is a high, has one of the highest clearances or whatever for what he was doing and, for his department. I believe he was a department head. And, what motive does he have to come out? What's the reason?
And make this up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't benefit anything.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you know more about this than I do. So correct me if I'm wrong, but his reason for coming out and complaining or coming out to the public with this is because he was concerned when he realized that, the highest levels of our Department of Defense and, intelligence agencies aren't getting access to this information. And it's being kept secret even from them, right?
Yes, that was
sort of his motivation.
That's partly his motivation, but also he heads up a particular UAP task force in his department, and he didn't have clearance. And then so when he's hearing all these stories, from people that are higher or as high as him, because everything is so compartmentalized, he's like, wait a minute. Are you serious? Like our department hasn't got any information on that. He goes over to Ariel. Ariel doesn't know anything about this. They don't even have access to stuff that I know about, let alone stuff that you're telling me about. And then he goes to other people in different departments that are still high up and gets bits and pieces of information.
And nobody's on the same page.
Yeah,
they all have different information. They're not sharing with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which again, the government's not going to do that. But I know people are out there saying right now, there is no way any of those people would risk their lives, their families' lives, in telling him this particular information about crashed vehicles, about alien, creatures or, half humanoids, however you want to say that, whatever they are. that's actually happening, because again, what do the government always tell you? You'll either, be disappeared or
Yeah, like
you'll.
they have nothing to gain by making this stuff up to him. And they weren't telling us this. They were just telling him. And now he's telling us.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it, because, they're not coming out to the public. And how many times have you been in your particular work environment, regardless of your clearance level, regardless of your department, regardless of if you're a manager, supervisor, all these particular things, you hear something about Rhonda that's kind of, a bit newsworthy or something you want to spread or can't wait to tell somebody about, even though you shouldn't, because once HR or your managers find out about it, you can be fired. I'm trying to say the thing without getting any triggers when we put this podcast up about unalived. I should say unalived, like the whole TikTok thing. That you're not going to be unalived, but you'll be unemployed. If they
Right.
find out. So you're always concerned with that particular aspect of things. But so people do give bits of information. Oh, you don't know what we have. Oh, if you only knew. Like, what do you mean if I only knew? I'm right here with you. Like, what are you talking about?
Right, like, why aren't you
you're
sharing this
bullshitting
with
me.
me?
You don't
We
have
should all
anything.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's generally how it goes. What is your take on all this?
When this first came out, or when you first sent me the video, I was so blown away. But then it kind of, the information started to settle, and I realized what I said before, this guy's just the last in line, right? There's been so many whistleblowers before him. He's not really telling us anything new. But the thing that makes it amazing.
Technically, he told us there are vehicles, there are aliens. They've gotten crash technology.
It. I mean, this is a guy with high level.
It's like you said, though. He's confirming something that already been in the ufology aspect of everything.
The UFO community has already known all this stuff, but he's presenting it like as it's fact,
Exactly, because of his clearance. That's like you said before. That's what separates him. And again, he has nothing to gain. If he wants to put a book out, if he wants to do, whatever, right? He can go, don't use my name, but here's this particular information. Again, he's not really truly given anything. And this was cleared. I don't know what he's going to say on his Sunday interview. But again, whatever it is, it's been signed off by the government, let's say. And who knows what he's really truly told these reporters, as far as, because reporters have a little bit of, you can tell them something and, they can under
telephone, right?
Under oath and different things, whatever they can, it's kind of like that whole lawyer thing. I forgot what the term is for, for journalists or whatever, when they don't, my sources, I just put it that way.
They don't reveal their sources.
Yeah, they don't reveal their sources, but they know this particular information. And then a lot of it, gets trickled out and all that stuff. But
in my opinion, what makes this a breakthrough is that he has permission to be speaking about this. Like, he has officially been given permission. What is he? Air Force intelligence.
Air Force. Yes,
they're backing it up. They're not denying it anymore. This is like another step towards progress of them finally being honest and transparent with this information and revealing the truth to the public, right?
Yes.
So that's why this is such a big deal.
My question about that also, could this be a false flag,
or a distraction
type situation? Yeah. And the person that, that I dealt with, I thought, I was like, okay, you're worried about what you're telling me, what you're not telling me anything. You're just basically giving me a breakdown on UAPs. Like, how, why is that so secretive? You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Right, not a big deal to us.
Yeah, exactly. We already know that. We can see the vehicles out there. We just don't, we don't know what they are, obviously. And again, I like the term UFO, unidentified flying object, opposed to, what's UAP? UAP,
Unidentified Ariel Phenomenon.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so that's all interesting. So along with this information coming out, and again on how fluid it is, and how once the government obviously knew he was going to do this particular interview, what they did, okay, you're gonna do that interview. Now we're gonna put out, we're gonna send Ariel up, the head of Ariel. I don't even know that particular guy's name, who's heading that whole thing up about the UAP report to Congress and all that good stuff. You know, and then they come out now and say, "Oh, no, we don't have any crashed vehicles. We don't have any knowledge of any crashed vehicles. We don't have any knowledge of the government having vehicles or having any type of alien, they wouldn't be called humanoids. They'll just be called aliens,
extraterrestrial,
I guess. But there's no knowledge of that. We don't have that." Well, that's what he said. You don't have access. You don't have that clearance.
Right, exactly. Like officially, of course, they're not going to come out and say it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, this guy has the highest level of classified clearance. That's crazy. And I'm pretty sure the president doesn't even have access to the information that he has. You know, because again, presidents are 4 years, 8 years, impeached, not impeached, whatever. You know,
right?
You know.
Can't trust them with
taking things from the White House, you know. So it's all very interesting. So as this story was going on, then we get hit with another story. So and again, it's just so crazy. Give them a little bit of information on that. Yeah.
So this, I don't know why this is just. It's blowing up in the news right now, but I was reading something that said that this actually happened back in April. But a family in Las Vegas called 911 and said that they had seen some lights or something in the sky. And then on the 911 call, you can hear this guy. He sounds kind of scared. But, you know, when I first heard it, I couldn't tell, is this a prank? Is this a joke? But he does sound kind of freaked out. And he tells them that there are 2 aliens in his backyard, 8-foot-tall aliens. He says they're looking right at him. They've got big heads and big eyes. And he said they're huge. They're 8 feet tall. And they actually wound up sending 2 officers to respond to the call. And they have the body cam footage from that.
Yes. And in that video,
it's crazy.
You see what do you see?
You can see one of the cops in his body cam footage in the background as he's talking to someone. You can see something taking off into the sky, like a blue light, and it's huge. It's insane.
And just to clarify, it wasn't his body cam; it was his dash cam.
Oh, the dash cam.
Yeah. His body cam was triggered, but when they entered into the backyard, they actually blacked out the cam because it was considered private property, and they weren't there investigating a crime or anything like that, particularly with the resident. So they had to black out that video when you guys go and check it out. But again, we're going to play that audio.
You have the 911 call?
It should be in this clip. It should be in this clip. Okay.
Oh, it's epic.
Here we go.
Southern Nevada is abuzz tonight with stories about the crash of an unknown object and the alleged sighting of strange creatures in the backyard of a Northwest Valley home.
So it was last night that 8 News Now investigator David Charnes reported about how Metro Police responded back on May 1st after receiving a strange call from a very frightened family. Well, our report generated a global response, and now piecing together the sequence of events has been kind of tricky, in part because the primary witnesses have been almost as elusive as the beings they say they encountered. Chief Investigator George Knapp is as perplexed as the rest of us, George.
As you know, this is not our first UFO rodeo. We first heard about the incident in early May via the Metro Police grapevine. The incident has a lot in common with other bizarre cases from around the world: an alleged crash, strange beings, and bits and pieces that don't make sense. But the police took this seriously, and so do we. Just before midnight on April 30th, skywatchers across several western states saw a bright fireball streak through the heavens. A police officer working in the Northwest Valley caught a glimpse of the colorful object on his body cam. At nearly the same time, a Ring camera in the area recorded a strange noise and what sounds like a crash. One family living in a ranch-style home had a much closer view of the object. 2 brothers and their father were working on a vehicle in their yard when they caught a glimpse of a sparkly object as it came crashing down, then were hit by what they describe as a shock wave. One of the witnesses, a young man named Angel, has stated when the brothers looked into the yard where the object landed, that spot was obscured and blurry, as if by unknown form of camouflage. What they saw next prompted a frantic call to 911.
So there's 2 people or 2 subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it. And big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
8 News Now investigators have spoken with family members multiple times in the past 4 weeks, but each of the 3 times we accepted their invitation to do an interview, they didn't answer the door or their phone. These are some of the claims they've made in other public forums. Multiple family members backed up the story in an initial police report we obtained. Angel says they heard the patter of multiple feet in the yard. They later heard footsteps on their roof. They saw one of the 8-foot-tall creatures climb behind the controls of a large front loader stored in the yard as if trying to engage it. He got a good look at one of the creatures, he said, a greenish-grayish being with large eyes and long legs. He says he could hear its deep breaths, and when he locked eyes, he was, in essence, frozen in place, couldn't move. In the middle of the yard, where the object had crashed, then vanished, a circular impression was left in the soil.
Okay, where is this on your property?
Metro sources say the police dispatcher initially wondered whether to send a crisis intervention team to help the troubled witness, but then took the incident seriously. 2 officers arrived 38 minutes after the call, and by then had heard from other officers. They proceeded cautiously and managed some nervous laughs.
I ain't dealing with that.
A few days later, the family says, 2 Metro sergeants returned to the scene to ask follow-up questions. The family says they also saw men in suits and sunglasses driving in a car with government plates cruising slowly past the house in the following days. Nellis and Creech have denied any interest or involvement with the incident. Metro has indicated they believe the family that something crashed in their yard. But what?
Has access to it.
You mentioned, George, in that piece that they were frozen because so many people have been critical of, like, why didn't they get their phone out? Why didn't they shoot the video? Do we know if there's even any video of this incident?
Yes and no. So there's a surveillance camera in the backyard. The property owner keeps that because he's got a lot of expensive equipment there. What we were told is that at the moment this thing comes down and crash, this camera went out, and it was out for a couple of minutes. When it came back on, the object was gone, but the circle was there. We've been told by Angel in multiple phone conversations that he shot video of the creatures. We haven't seen it, and we don't know anybody else who's seen it yet, so maybe he'll release it at some point.
It's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, all over.
All right, George, thanks for that.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's insane.
That's hella crazy. So you were right. It was the actual body cam.
Body cam.
Opposed to the video I heard earlier was they said it was the dash cam. And it looked like it was through the windshield or whatever when you see the object. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's blurry. It's not very good, but you can see something taken off in the sky in the background.
Not even a question. But I have a couple of questions. Again, that one was way more detailed than what we initially heard because right now it's blowing up. Yeah. But couple of things. Was there anything left from the crash? Like okay, when I hear a crash, I'm like, okay, something's broken. Like the vehicle is not functioning correctly. Either it's now more damaged than it was when it was for whatever reason that it did crash, and so therefore you need a team or people there to either get whatever the objects that are left or whatever. How the military moves in, grabs everything, rolls out, and says it never happened.
It could have collided with something. It could have kind of crashed into the earth or whatever, and then that makes a sound and it shakes the house or whatever. But maybe it didn't actually damage the craft. Maybe it did more damage to whatever it crashed into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely
because it sounds like they took off after that. So
yeah, exactly. Like they were like, okay, I told you not to let that new kid drive.
Right.
Drive the craft, but yeah, so that's very interesting.
Did he say that the alien hopped on his tractor?
Maybe to tip it back, or maybe to utilize it to do something to the craft or whatever, stabilize it. Yeah, that's crazy. But again,
what is this crazy technology?
Yeah, would have to be a loader that didn't have an overhang, because those loaders are, they have that the top canopy situation. So if an 8-foot person or a 10-foot person were to sit in that, how would you even control the mechanics?
True. It'd be too tall for that.
Exactly. I don't know. But the description, I did trip off of the description, the wide mouth, because it had the classic alien big head, big oval eyes, all that. But the difference was the wide mouth, and that sounded more like Frankie Rowe's description of the Jerusalem crickets.
What are they called? children of the earth?
Yeah, children of the earth,
Those
that
bugs.
as she describes it, which we'll get into that later. But
But you know, another difference is this is the first time that I've heard them say they're tall. Usually people say they're small, like child-sized.
No. There are different aliens. There are supposedly the small ones. Then there are the tall, skinny. There's different races supposedly that are on our planet, and that we're being visited by. So, maybe it wasn't the small grays. Maybe it was the tall.
Tall grays.
Yeah, exactly. There's all different types of aliens supposedly. But yeah, it's to go along with the David story and how that was blowing up, and then you have this. Was it a time thing that it came out? Because I believe, like you said, it happened in April or May 1st or something.
Yeah, why is it coming up? Why is it blowing up now? That's interesting.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different things, but and then also,
weren't you going to talk about the Chinese balloon story?
Yes.
I don't know much about that, but just for everyone listening, this happened a few weeks ago, where China had some balloons flying over the US, right? And everyone was freaking out because no one was doing anything about it. But I had no idea that there was a UFO involved in that story at all until you just told me that. So I'm just going to let you tell the story.
Okay. So basically, this ties into the Roswell as far as the balloons on, how we love to, act like grownups can't tell a balloon and foil and sticks from a craft, let alone an exotic craft. Not to mention if it was a B-52 bomber, a P-52 Mustang, a Cessna airplane, any type of air vehicle, to be able to tell the difference between a balloon and some sticks and some foil. Even with the Chinese balloon, it had an array at the bottom that kind of looked like solar panels, and it could have had, solar panel aspect for the mics or whatever, that supposedly it was a spy balloon. So even with that, you were like, okay, that's obviously a balloon floating. I mean, so it does tie into the Roswell. And then, again, there was one, and then there was 3 to 4 vehicles that were found. The other 3 were actually supposedly actual small crafts that were moving independently, that were not tethered by a balloon, and that was shot down. So again, we do have, on this episode, a lot of audio. So I hope you guys bear with us, because it's very knowledgeable and very, germane to what we're talking about and everything. So let's go ahead and get into that.
This morning, questions after more unidentified objects are discovered over U.S. and Canadian airspace. According to a senior administration official, this latest object was in the shape of an octagon, unmanned, and traveling near sensitive sites at an altitude of 20,000 feet, posing a civilian flight risk. First detected Saturday as it flew over Montana, President Biden gave the order to shoot it down once it reappeared on radar out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of military leaders.
We have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week.
This latest air defense operation coming just 24 hours after another object was spotted over Canada. U.S. and Canadian officials ordering it shot down.
It represented a reasonable threat to civilian aircraft. Canadian and American fighter jets were scrambled, and an American F-22 successfully shot down the object.
And that incident coming just one day after another unidentified object was shot down off the coast of Alaska. 3 incidents in less than a week since that Chinese spy balloon was shot down off the Carolina coast. But a senior U.S. official saying these 3 are different from that spy balloon. None appear to have a payload, and all are smaller.
It doesn't mean that they are coming from another country. It doesn't even mean that there are more of them. We're just looking for them, and so we're finding more of them.
An intensive search effort is now underway. Recovery teams in Alaska using Navy planes and helicopters to recover and analyze those objects they find. Tanya?
We will never hear about that particular object once they do recover it, if at all possible.
Right.
For
I was
sure.
just going to say, it's interesting that happened at the same time, the Chinese balloons and the UFO, and everyone was talking about the balloons, right? And I didn't hear anyone mentioning the UFO, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all this stuff is happening in a 3-month, 2-month period of time,
Right.
with all this information coming out, NASA getting on to, we're going to help Arrow and we're going to do our own UAP research and alien research on life out there. And are these vehicles real? What are they? So if you guys haven't watched that, it's a 4-hour video. It's hard to stay focused for that length of time. But the first hour in that video is very telling because they talk about, these are why certain things seem like they're actually, not the Go Fast video, but there's another video where it's like a UAP going above the water line, and then it's like it splashes into the water. They were saying it was a trick of the camera that made it seem like it actually dipped into the ocean, but it didn't, and it was just a visual illusion from the particular camera that was being utilized. So
NASA said that?
Yeah.
About
NASA
that
and
incident?
Arrow came because Arrow's doing a little. They're up there for about maybe 20 minutes, or whatever, taking questions and showing things that they found. They talk about the sphere object that's found in the Middle East or whatever that's moving, pretty fast or whatever. It's like a silver orb. And they talk about that.
That video is crazy.
Yeah, they say that they don't know what that is. That is something definitely that they're trying to get the information on, and that is not something they can account for, as man-made or anything else. So that also is very intriguing. So
it's exciting that NASA's even talking about this at all. So.
Well, most would say NASA's been covering up stuff for decades, as far as
Why stop now?
changing their pictures or whatever of the moon, taking things out with Photoshop, and then one person will say, I have the actual photos before they were photoshopped to show all these particular structures that are on the moon, and so on and so forth.
And UFOs that they caught in the background in the sky and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have one more story I want to get into because it just involves Chris Cuomo and a congressman. Which congressman was that? It's Tim Burch, I believe, or was that his name?
I'm looking at me?
Yeah. I want to say that was his name. But I want to go ahead and play this because I thought it was hilarious in the sense of they're talking about what the government is capable of as far as knowledge, how they spend money, and the reasons why they're doing any of this and what can actually come from it. So I find it pretty interesting.
Bring in Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. He was part of the first congressional hearings on UFOs in half a century. Congressman, I feel you when you say you don't trust the government, you want to know more. Where I stop feeling you is, well, have you been shown anything to feed your skepticism?
Not by any official government. Well, yeah, I have too. I take that back. I've been briefed in some settings, that confidential settings where we've been talked to, and I've been shown some things that were that I would say there's no military aircraft that we know of in this world that match those descriptions.
So you've been shown something by government sources that they say is proof of alien life.
Yes, sir. But the thing we got to worry about, Mr. Como, can I call you Chris? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Well, Chris, the thing we got to worry about is these government agencies. All they're going to do is look for additional funding. They're laughing out of one side of their mouth and then saying the other, hey, we could get a few more billion out of Congress. That's what we got to do. What they've got to do is come forth with those files that we've seen that are redacted, heavily redacted, and we need to bring in some of these witnesses. You showed the Tic Tac videos, and I would encourage people to Google Tic Tac videos. Those were Navy pilots that filmed that. I talked to one of the pilots who was involved in that, and the Intelligence Committee did not allow that person to speak. They weren't even given credentials to come into the meeting. They had to lie as a member of the press, and we're not able to, and they wouldn't even slow the video down where they showed some balloon that flew by a cockpit that somebody took a picture with their cell phone. And then Adam Schiff, who I don't share any, we're friends, but we don't agree on too much. He asked the best question of the whole deal. He said, "What exactly am I looking at? And can you stop the video?" And out of a 13-second video, and I can assure you, Isabel Burchett, my 15, almost 16-year-old daughter, could have stopped the video. But the two people they had running that they're supposed to be overseeing this new insight into UFOs, they couldn't stop the video. Hell, they can't even spell UFO. This is our government is the arrogance is unbelievable, and and the cover up continues. I told the press, I said, we just got hosed. I was supposed to be able to ask a question. I was moving towards the podium. I was going to blister them, and dadgummit, right before I got up there, I get a text said, "No, Burchett, that's some of the Tic Tac videos." And I've talked to some of the pilots. Some of those one of those guys is one of the best pilots in the world. And why is he not being brought before a congressional committee to describe what he saw?
David Fravers, who we're talking about. So look, Congressman, you have an open invitation. If you get any proof that any of this merits the curiosity, I'll give you all the time you want. I promise you.
You got it, brother. Chris, what's going to have to happen? One of these people, these so-called whistleblowers, is going to have to bring some proof. Going to have to bring the pictures. Yep. As the young people say, bring the receipts. And I heard you saying something like that earlier. It's very hip and very in, so your ratings will go up because of that. But we've got to get somebody. We've got to get somebody to bring that stuff forward.
Look, if it exists, it'd be nice, because I got to tell you, I can think of a couple of other things you guys may want to be spending your time on down there. Congressman, 100%. Be well. Good luck with your job.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Welcome back to Strange Darkness Radio. We value your thoughts and opinions, and we want you to be a part of our show. You can call our Strange Darkness Radio hotline at 916-741-3032 or email us at strangedarknessradio@gmail.com to share your stories or ideas. For more updates and exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at strangedarkness_radio, Twitter at SD Radio, and Facebook at Strange Darkness Radio to join our ever-growing Strange Darkness Radio family. Stay connected with us, and together, let's keep the mystery alive.
Yeah, so y'all need to bring the receipts.
That guy was hilarious.
That was really good, whatever. But he was right on point, man. Republican, Democrat, I don't care. We need to find out what's going on, period. We're all people, and we need to, we've been lied to long enough. And, just imagine all the people who've known this, for decades and were shot down and, passed away without the truth ever coming out or having full disclosure. So I thought he was right on point. And Congress.
But you know what he says about bringing the receipts? The receipts are out there. I mean, the receipts have been brought. You can find so many videos, not just ordinary people. There's tons of those too. But I mean, you can find videos from the Navy, the Air Force, other countries.
Yeah.
You just have to look. It's not always easy to find, but it's out there. The receipts are out there.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. But at the end of the day, people want a press conference from Congress, from the president. Aliens are here. This is a story. This is a situation. But that I don't think will never happen. Not that way, because Congress, they're going to say, well, yeah, we've known this for decades. We've why do you think 400? I think on the previous shows that I did on Strange Darkness Radio, we talk about how many people go missing a year and the different aspects of missing, meaning runaways, killed by loved ones, just various different things, whatever, and it trickled down to where there's over 200,000 people that are wiped off the face of the earth to never be found again. And if it's found out that there is something going on, with
right, that the government's involved.
Exactly. Let's you give us the technology, we'll let you, experiment on a couple of people, and not to mention the abductions that occur, if the government says they've known this, now
and they did nothing.
Exactly. Are they piecing it together to say, well, no. Now we put all this stuff together with NASA, with New Arrow, with all this, black budget money. And we now found out that they're
right.
here.
Yeah, they have a lot of motivation to pretend that they are just discovering all this, right?
Exactly.
Or that they didn't know about it before, whatever.
Yes. And as we, get into the Roswell aspect of things, again, 76 years ago, you're gonna be like, oh man, this is sounds like damning information, so it's very interesting on what the government agencies do know and what they're trying to hide as far as the technologies. Because again, I'm a big proponent of, you can take the technology that happened within the last 40 years, the boom in microprocessors, microconductors, hard drives, everything, fiber optics.
Right, it just exploded.
Yeah, exactly, and minimized.
Out of nowhere.
It got smaller.
Right.
And,
more efficient, more compact.
Exactly. You go back to the 60s, even the freaking mid 70s, you had hard drives that were only 20 and 30 gigabytes that were on big platters that had to be air cooled in big buildings because of, just because of they would heat up and shut down. And whether you're dealing with the floppy drive technology, just all the different aspects of things that happen. People say, well, if you just follow the technology, you'll see the changes that happen over time. No. What's going to happen is, the governmental agencies are going to take this to private companies, and they're going to allow them to backdoor some of this technology. And again, not the weaponed, technology that the government is utilizing, because the government loves to freaking take something and make it into a weapon. And again, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? I don't know. Are they going against different countries to say, okay, we need to have this first before this country has this particular type of technology to combat against it, or
it's like a race.
Exactly. Because I can tell you one thing, people always get on the freaking U.S. government about what they do to other countries, which is, well and true in most part. But the last time I heard of the United States conquering a country and then taking their money and then making that country work for the United States, that hasn't happened probably in this century. I mean, when we went to whether it was Kuwait, whether it was the Middle East, whether it was Baghdad, whatever, when we blew it up or protected it or did whatever, we paid to fix it. That was U.S. dollars. So we didn't say, okay, any oil you produce, we get half of it. Now gas prices are extremely low and all this other stuff, whatever, called the spoils of war. They haven't used that. They probably use that with the technology from aliens, but they definitely don't use it with, places, countries they help out to say, okay, can you kind of give us some money back, homie? We just, whether or not you thought it was a good idea that we freed your country or did whatever, but can you lower these gas prices? Can we get a break? Can you not send oil to the Soviet Union and so on and so forth? So those things aren't happening. We give a lot of money to foreign, places. So.
Well, and I think it's kind of out of the government's hands now. I think, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they kind of had a hold on this subject. But I think these private weapons companies have just completely taken over. I don't think the government even knows nearly as much as these private interests. They're the ones that have the information. They're the ones that have the technology. They're the ones keeping everything secret. And they're probably paying the government to just look the other way. Don't question us. Don't look at this, and don't talk about this.
Oh yeah, exactly. As they have us so trained to go to work, to go on vacation, buy the next iPhone, get the biggest house, get the best car. Let's California, let's 2035, let's go all electric. Even though our power grid sucks, if a lightning struck, the power grid, we'd all be, in the dark, and your car wouldn't go nowhere. But we wouldn't have gas because we're all electric by 2035. All these particular, things that the government,
and we're all struggling so much just to get by day to day, just to live our lives. When it's like we have so much information and technology in the year 2023. Why are we all struggling like this? Why are we living like this? But we're all too distracted to even look at.
Well, that's what I was getting to. They want you distracted, but they never talk about when we took out bin Laden that we used a helicopter that had stealth technology that could not be saw or heard in any type of environment, whether or not it's right underneath you, whether or not it's on radar. It cannot be heard or seen, right? But it crashed because it hit, it's funny about great technology. It hit a fence. And so it crashed, and there was two of them. And so they blew that one up, and then they got into the other after the deed was done. And they tried to, blow up the whole thing, but they left like the rotors and whatever else.
Oh, so they left that behind.
So they had to admit that they have a new, it's not a Black Hawk because it's bigger than a Black Hawk because it takes actual, people. And that technology has yet to be seen, but yet we paid for it, has yet to be disclosed, has yet to be put into combat or anything else. But we have this particular technology and we used it to go and do that particular task. But nobody asked questions about, hey, can we see that particular, helicopter? What technology is it using? Are you using that against us? Or is it something that, alien backdoor technology, all that stuff, whatever. But again, the public doesn't worry about that. They focus on, your day-to-day life life situations to where, they have you so like work till you die, unless you hit the lotto, unless you're famous.
We're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. On our 1 to 2 days off a week, we just want to relax and not think about anything and not stress. Yeah, and it's really unfair.
Not us. We are here to give you guys the truth, and to let you know. Exactly, for sure. But so yeah,
one thing is for sure though, it was definitely much easier to cover this up back in the 40s, 50s, 60s than it is today. I mean, at this point, they have no choice but to come out with the truth because people have phones, people have videos, people are, we don't rely on the government for information the way they did back then. But in the case of Roswell, I mean, the way that they covered that up and they just took care of it so fast. I mean, the crash happened at night, and by the next morning, they had done a sweep of the desert. They had shut down all the roads leading into Roswell. They had removed any debris, anything. I mean, and they just completely, what's the word? They just stopped the story from coming out completely, and people, nobody questioned it.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, are you ready to get into our Roswell actual story?
Roswell.
And again, this is what we initially were talking about, but as you see, this is going to spin all the way back around. 75 years, 76, I keep saying because it was 75th anniversary was last year, but it spins all the way back around from the tales that some of the people tell that events that occurred and happened to them. And that will sound like something out of, yesterday or the news that's happening now and all that stuff with whether it's the balloons or whether it's the technology or whether it's the government coming to your home or your workplace and say, hey, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. If you do, this and that is going to happen to you.
Hey, just real quick before we get into Roswell, another case where they used balloons to explain a UFO sighting?
What's that?
The Battle of LA.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They literally were shooting at this thing for hours and hours and hours, hundreds of witnesses. There was damage done. People got hurt. And at the end of it, they told everyone that it was a balloon.
Yeah, you did.
Crazy.
I don't know if we were initially going to put that story into this whole thing, but you should give them a little bit more info on the whole battle of because I know you did extensive research on that.
Yeah, right now.
No, yeah, just to give them a synopsis of it actually in LA, like it freaking
This
went
happened in
down.
the United States of America, California, LA. Yes, it's crazy. So the Battle of LA happened in 1942. It was February 24th, 1942. And it was about 3 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor had happened. So people were, stressed out. They were on high alert, right? And basically, it kind of started how it always starts, right? They were catching weird things on radar, and one person saw something on radar, and then it sort of started a panic, and the word kind of spread. And they wound up actually raising the alarm in LA. They shut down the county. They turned off the power. They told people to stay in their homes. They were getting ready for an air raid, basically. They thought they were under attack.
Yeah.
And let me see, what was his name? There was one witness. It was a Coast artillery colonel. I didn't get his name, but he said that he saw with his eyes 25 planes in the sky headed toward LA. So he confirmed he saw, and other people said the same thing. They saw
and these were
multiple
saucers.
objects.
It was saucer style objects, correct?
Well, they didn't know what they were. They thought they were planes, but
okay.
I'm assuming just because it was so far away and they couldn't see, but they saw multiple objects, and they were coming in closer and closer to LA. And let me see, I think it was at 3 a.m. They actually opened fire.
Yep.
They were firing at this thing for hours.
Big ass shells that were dropping to the ground. These flat cannons that were just
huge,
bursting. Some of the
they were
shrapnel
using
falling back.
Anti-aircraft ammunition, over almost 2,000 rounds of anti-aircraft ammunition that they shot at these objects. And people saw them with their own eye. There were so many witnesses that came out afterwards that confirmed all of this. I mean, you can look it up. It was in the newspapers and everything. And then I think it was a few days later, they came out and just said, our bad. We weren't under attack. It was just a balloon. We panicked. We overreacted. Sorry.
Exactly. How many heart attacks happened? Hearing that stuff go off. Okay.
They did damage to their own city. I mean, people's cars were damaged, buildings were damaged, and it was all by our own fire, So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the crazy one.
Okay. So it's again, this is a wild episode. Again, we're just trying to find the truth within the truth, because again, like Carolyn says, we know what it is. We know that this is real. We know that there are particular species that visit are visiting Earth or are on Earth, and they have the technology, they have the crafts. All this stuff is true. It's just a matter of us, I guess, still scratching at it or digging at it and hoping, that the government, finally says, okay, we'll let you in on it, but can we still go to work the next day? Can we still believe in God? Can we still have all these things or whatever that have, we've been, that's been going on, because they feel that everybody's going to fall apart. Like, I don't need to go to work. I don't believe in God anymore because where these aliens come from. It's like the Vatican even coming out and says, oh, if there is extraterrestrial life out there, they believe in God. The Vatican actually came out that, and they do have souls, and they have souls too. So
I think they're worried about the economy, and I think they're worried about people not buying things.
Exactly. No, for sure. That's
caring about materialist things anymore.
Exactly. And then let alone the technology, paying for electricity. Let's not talk about Nikola Tesla and the AC versus DC
the fact
and
that
free
we don't
energy.
need to be burning oil anymore. We don't need to be burning coal anymore, fossil fuels. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm sorry, people, were going on a tangent, but
well, one other thing, when I was doing research, and one other reason I want to talk about all these different cases, even going back to the 40s, is because there are so many similarities. I mean, even people who don't necessarily know a lot about this subject or don't believe in it all the way, if you just look at all these different stories and you use your common sense, you'll see there's no way people are making this up. I mean, there's so many similarities in the descriptions of the crafts and the way they move and the things that people see. It's crazy.
They say ignorance is bliss. And sometimes, people would rather not know than know, because if you know, then you have to do something, or it changes your your paradigm.
Right.
To
It's
where
scary.
everything you believed in, everything you trust in is gone, and what's the new paradigm shift for you?
Right.
And I understand that, but at the end of the day, dying or living this life in as a lie and as slave labor when things could be different, better, and the government not using you to support their things.
Pockets.
Yeah, exactly. From their pockets to their technology to stuff that they have. They always say, "Oh, don't worry about the Second Amendment because cops will protect you." I don't know any cop that's going to teleport in my house right now and save me if somebody's has a gun on me or whatever else right this second. It's not going to happen. But I don't have a security team, around me, like whether it's a congressman, whether it's Governor Newsom. I usually call him Governor Nuisance. I'm sorry for those who don't like that. But so those things or whatever, the government, say, well, they help a lot. They do a lot. Well, no, it's your money. I mean, you're paying.
Exactly. Where does all our money go, man? I mean, why are we? Don't even get me started on that.
Okay, sorry guys. We'll get back because again, this is a long show. We're getting there. Now we're going into the meat of it all and not how it all started, but so one of the big pictures of the whole start of ufology, UFOs, the crash spacecrafts, all that good stuff.
Right.
What's up?
Roswell might be the first original UFO cover-up.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot because you go into the bombers back in World War II who were seeing they called them something fighters, spoof fighters. It's on the tip of my tongue. So many things going on. But yeah, they would see certain things, whatever, when they're out doing bombing raids and bombing runs. And I forgot the name. I know there's somebody out there shouting that name.
Right, but people would, see things and then come back and people just make fun of them, right? But I mean, this is the first time the government actually came in and covered up a story, threatened people, hid evidence, took the evidence.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, they made their people sound idiotic and crazy because, again, if you are a government official or whatever and you were actually, working with the atomic bomb and you can't tell wood and aluminum foil from a actual exotic craft, that's a problem. So, okay, here we go.
The Roswell UFO incident, which took place in July 1947, is a well-known and controversial event involving alleged encounters with extraterrestrial beings. It occurred shortly after World War II and the invention of the atomic bomb. The incident began with unusual radar readings showing fast and maneuverable blips near Roswell Air Force Base and White Sands Missile Base in New Mexico. The bases were located near the site of the Manhattan Project and housed the only atomic bombs at the time. Surveillance flights and witnesses reported seeing the UFO, which was believed to be an electrical storm by some locals. On July 4th, the radar blip vanished, suggesting a possible crash. The Roswell Fire Department discovered debris and a saucer-shaped craft at the crash site, along with 2 bodies and a surviving little person. The military quickly arrived and took control of the scene, shutting down roads in the area. The bodies were reportedly taken to Hangar 84, and the debris was transported to an unknown location, possibly Area 51. Initially, a press release confirmed the UFO crash, but the military intervened and replaced the statement, asserting it was a weather balloon and aluminum foil. Witnesses were threatened, and the incident was suppressed. In 1997, Colonel Philip J. Corso, a retired Army intelligence and Pentagon official, published a book revealing new information about Roswell and the subsequent cover-up. Despite the available information, many details about the incident remain unknown and classified. The military's motivation for the cover-up remains a subject of speculation.
Not to us, but go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, so the Roswell crash happened on, I think, July 4th, 1947. But what some people don't know is actually there were UFO sightings and radar. There were weird anomalies popping up on radar at Roswell Air Force Base and White Sands Missile Base in New Mexico in the days leading up to that. And basically, they were catching all these weird anomalies flying on their radar, and they were going so fast, and they were making these impossible maneuvers. So at first, they thought it was a mistake. They thought their equipment was malfunctioning. So they performed some tests. They confirmed with White Sands that they were also seeing it on their radar, and they realized, like, no, there is something out there. But there wasn't anything that they could do about it. So they kind of just observed, and waited. But in the meantime, Washington, D.C. got wind of that, and they actually sent, I think it was, well, I don't know how many, but they sent a bunch of intelligence officers out there. So by the time the crash happened, we already had intelligence officers out there ready and waiting, right? And I think Sky just said this, but witnesses saw some crazy things going on in the sky in the days leading up to July 4th. But I guess summer storms are common in that area, or they were common back then. And so they all just thought they were seeing some crazy storm. So they didn't even know what they were seeing. Then, let me think. So the crash happens on July 4th, 1947, and the blip disappears off the radar. So White Sands and Roswell, they kind of know that something probably happened, but they don't know for sure. However, there were witnesses who saw the crash, and they report it to Roswell authorities. So actually, the first people to arrive on scene are the Roswell Fire Department. And those are some of the witnesses who came forward years and years later, and their family members came forward years and years later with, information about the crash. When they arrived on the scene, the firemen said that they saw some kind of an aircraft. It didn't have wings. It wasn't a plane. They said it was not a plane. I think you're going to play a clip from Frankie Rose. She's the daughter of one of the firemen, but I think she said that her dad even said it was not of this world. It was not from Earth.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
And not only that, but there were 3 bodies. There were 2 bodies and 1 alien still alive walking around.
Yes.
And multiple witnesses have described them, and they all described them exactly the same. They were small with big heads, big eyes, and they looked like those bugs that you were saying before, right? The children of the earth.
They're Jerusalem crickets. So I'm just going to say crickets because I don't know the difference between American crickets and Jerusalem. I don't know. Anyways, I'm joking.
They
this is
like
obviously
those
New Mexico, so the Jerusalem crickets were in United States. They were, But anyways, I just found that very interesting, the way she says it. So
that's a good description.
Yeah. So this, what makes this story interesting for me is that I've heard this story a million times. As far as Mac Brazel, it was his farm. It was the wreckage that was scattered. Go ahead.
That guy actually, he was in a different part of New Mexico, close to Roswell, but
because
not
there was
Roswell,
2 crashes.
Right?
That's the thing. Yeah.
That was a completely different site, but it was debris from the same crash, but it was in a different area.
Yeah.
So he was another witness, and he actually found debris on his property, and he told people about it. But let me back up for a second. So Roswell Air Force Base at the time housed the only nuclear or atomic bombs. And if you look at a map, Roswell and White Sands Missile Base are literally right on top of each other. And they're also right on top of the place where the Manhattan Project took place.
Yeah.
So that's like a hot area for
it was the 509th bomb group.
Yes, the 509th Bomb Brigade. They were stationed, or they were assigned to Roswell Air Force Base at the time, and they were like the most elite bomber squadron.
Yeah,
at the
they
time,
were responsible for the atomic bomb testing and development. It was Major Jeff Marcel. He was the intelligence officer, one of the ones that was there also. And because when people hear this story, that's who when it comes to because they had Marcel is the one that took the pictures with the foil, the wood, and, small little scraps of the balloon. That's what everybody's always focused on. And then he tells when he showed his son the actual, metallic stuff. But not that many people that I know of even knew about Frankie Rowe. But go ahead.
Right. So firemen arrive on the scene. They see what they see. They're only there a few minutes before the military shows up and tells them to leave, right? So the military takes control of the situation. But of course, by then it was too late. These firemen had already seen some stuff, and they went home and they told their families and told their coworkers. What's interesting is on July 8th, a spokesperson for the 509th Bomb Brigade, Colonel William Blanchard, issued a press release confirming that there was a crash at Roswell. And he stated in this press release that they had recovered a flying disc or a flying saucer.
Yeah.
I think he literally said the Air Force has a flying saucer in its possession. The local news in Roswell reported on this, but it was only like the next day when the military came out. They sent Colonel Blanchard on leave. They had some other guy step in as the spokesperson, and he denied everything that Blanchard had said. I think it was General Ramey that they replaced him with.
Yep.
He said that it was a weather balloon. It was just a balloon and some tinfoil. Nothing to see here, right?
Exactly.
So
now again,
complete change of story. They completely suppressed the story.
Think about this, people. This group, brigade, this bomber group, whatever you want to call them, right? Deal with atomic weapon.
They were the highest intelligence
seaplanes all the time.
Had.
Yes, seaplanes all the time. No, the secret planes that they have, the high flyers, whatever they were doing. I forgot the name of that particular.
Oh yeah. So you would think that they of all people would be able to tell
a balloon
a plane
and
or
some
a balloon.
sticks and foil. What what Ramey showed in the picture. I mean, come on. So it's crazy. So
even the townspeople were like, no, dude, do you think we're stupid? Like, what is this?
Yes. So you want to get into Frankie's interview?
Well, so real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
In the next few days, Frankie Rowe, her dad, she was a 10-year-old child at the time. Her dad was one of the firemen, and she not only had this conversation with her dad about what he had seen that night, but he actually took her to the fire station one day. I think she was staying homesick from school or something, and he took her to the fire station. And she said that he and his colleagues were actually passing around some material that they had found at the crash site. And she describes it. And not only she, some other people described the same material. You can read about it in, what is this book? The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso. But I guess this material was like a thin, metallic, flexible material, but it was impossible to break. She said they tried stabbing it with knives, they tried burning it, they tried ripping it, and it just would not tear. And so they were saying, can you imagine the force of this crash to be able to tear this material that we can't even get a knife through it? And it's, it's paper thin, whatever it was. But anyways, so then I think it was a few days later, some, men in black come and they threaten the townspeople. They threaten Frankie Rowe and her family. But you can play the clip because
okay, it's gonna start when her dad first comes home, and so we're gonna play that one. Then we'll play the one after, just because I want you guys to hear the pain in this woman's voice, and to hear it from her own words about what occurred and what transpired. And just how, fearful she is. And again, she's older at this particular moment in her life. And it still, is fresh, to her. So let's go ahead and get into it.
My name is Frankie Rowe, R-O-W-E.
I know you've probably told this story a million times, but if you could tell it as fresh as possible for our audience, that would be great. Just tell me what happened when your dad came home that day.
The very first time that I heard about this at all. Okay. Daddy came home from work. They worked shifts of a type that they would be on duty maybe 24 hours or 36 hours and then off 8 or 12, like that. So we hadn't seen him for a time. And he got home that evening, and he came in so excited, and I was in the kitchen with Mother, and he asked Mother, he said, I've got something I want to tell everybody. Get everybody in here. And she said, we're cooking supper right now. And he said, well, how long is it going to be? Because I've got to talk to everybody. And it was just my mother and myself and the 3 younger kids at home, and my other sister was working. So we hurried and we got it on the table and called the kids in. And he started telling us that they had gone on a call of what they thought was going to be a plane crash north of Roswell. And he said they got called out to Blackwater Draw. And when they got out there, what they saw was not a plane that was our plane, but he said it was a flying craft from somewhere else. Well, we didn't ask questions, but Mother asked all the questions, and we were just listening, and she started, what do you mean somewhere else? And he said, it's not an airplane. He said, it's not from this world. He said the crash was like the flying saucers that they have talked about, because there'd been a few comments on the news about flying saucers. And he said it was one of the flying saucers crashed. And I don't think really Mother believed him at first. And he said, no, he said, I mean it. We went out there early today, which I don't know what time that was, but early to him could have meant they left before dark. And he said when they got there, they could see that there were 2 bodies that were laying on the ground outside of this craft, and that there was one, what he called little person. And he said there's one little person that was walking around, and he said they were still alive. So she asked him, you know, what do they look like? Do they look like us? And he said they were very small, about the size of a small 10-year-old child. But the head looked like the little insect that we played with or that we saw around our house called Child of the Earth. We all knew what that looked like, so nobody asked any questions on that. We assumed that meant that the head was too large for the body, and it had no hair, and it would have large eyes. We knew that because that's what the Child of the Earth insect looks like. He said they looked quite a bit like us. He said they were a lot smaller than we are. Because when he said a small 10-year-old child, I knew he meant smaller than I was. And I wasn't very big at 12 years old. I was a little small for my age. And he said that the other 2 were dead and that this one that was alive was very sad. But he emphasized and he kept saying, there's no need for us to be afraid. They're not here to hurt us. And he said, we couldn't help them. And he was more upset over the fact that they couldn't help this little person. And that's something he really felt badly, that he couldn't help this one that was alive. So that was just a conversation over dinner that night.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it's things like that when you hear someone, the pain in her voice as she's telling the story like it happened yesterday, and you know, it's like these people have been holding these secrets and things in for a long time, and they know their time is coming to where once they're gone, no one will know of it or no one will remember it. And then so they want to come forth and tell what's going on. And you, in talking to you about this, Carolyn, you had a real insight into the alien portion of, you know.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that. So I think, I don't know if Frankie Rowe talks about this in the documentary, but in the book, The Day After Roswell.
Real quick, let them know the name of the documentary so that way they can, again, we're going to post this in comments, in the show description, any links or whatever that we have going, but go ahead and tell them what it is.
Yeah, it's called The Roswell Cover-Up 75 Years Later. I think it's a brand new documentary and it is so good. I mean, everyone should watch it. there was so much brand new information in there. I mean, it was great. But anyways, so multiple witnesses, and like you just said, these people were scared, right? They were intimidated, they were threatened, they were told never to talk about this, and they didn't. Many of them never talked about it again. Some of them, it took years and years and years for them to talk about it. But people who saw these little beings, the aliens, all described them the same. And Jay Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, I don't believe he ever interviewed anyone, but he based his book off of secret files that he was able to access when he was working for the Pentagon. So in his book, he says that witnesses who were on the scene, they could feel that this one alien that was still alive was so sad, and they could feel that it was grieving for the two dead aliens, for its, comrades or whatever. But it didn't tell them, it wasn't saying anything, it wasn't speaking, but they said they could literally feel how sad it was. They could feel his feelings. They could feel him grieving and being scared and being, afraid and sad. So I thought that was just so interesting. It's like it was communicating telepathically with them.
Yeah, because, people say, oh, your first thought when you see something like that is to run.
Right, and
or
get scared.
to get out of there.
Right.
You're terrified of what you're looking at, but you don't know, what's occurring in your body or mentally, to be these creatures to be telepathic or empathetic to, or make you empathetic to their situation. And
think about it. How else could you communicate with someone from a completely different planet or even possibly galaxy or universe from you? There's no other way but telepathically. You can't. Yeah. You don't speak the same language.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they have some device. You swallow this bubble.
Right.
That was Guardians. No, that was in the quantum verse. But Ant-Man. But no, you're right. You're right. And so it's so, it's just so intriguing on the information that's really out there, and we kind of brush it aside, or a lot of people don't know of it. Or don't even focus on it. So let's go into the next segment to where, she actually, go ahead. You had something else?
So the next clip is, it's Frankie Rowe, and she's talking about a few days after the crash. I guess she was staying home sick from school, and her dad actually wound up taking her to work with him. And she was there when he and his colleagues were all discussing the crash. They were talking about the details of it, and they also were passing around some material that they found at the crash site. So I'll just let you go ahead and play the clip.
Okay, here we go.
And then there wasn't too much said about it for the next couple of days. Then I was at the fire station one afternoon because I'd gotten sick. I had to see the doctor, and we only had one vehicle. So I went back to work with Daddy. He came home at noon and picked me up on his lunch. And I had gone to the doctor and was sitting in the kitchen part of the fire station, and I was eating a glass of ice chips. And a state policeman came in, and he yelled at Daddy. He said, "Hey, Dan, come over here." And he said, "Get all the guys. I want to show you guys something." The state policeman reached into his pocket, and he said, "I don't think you guys got to see anything like this the other day." And he pulled his hand out of his pocket, and it was closed up. He opened his hand over the table and dropped a piece of material that, when it hit the table, it was all wadded up when it left his hand, and when it hit the table, it spread out like it was water. And they were asking him, "How'd you get by with this?" And he said, well, he had helped with some of the pickup of debris, and he had managed to sneak that one piece in his pocket. He said, "I don't know how long I'll get to keep this before I get caught." Because he said, everybody they catch, they're taking away whatever they've got.
Last count, I had spoken to around 4 people who handled various aspects of the debris. The most dramatic is the foil-like material that you could wad up in a ball and let it go and it would unfold itself. A lot of people reported that. What kind of material did we have in 1947 that would that had those properties. There were things like foil backed with cloth that when you wadded up, it would tend to unfold itself somewhat, but there were always the signs of creases. And some of the people were very specific. There was no sign of a crease or a fold in this thing when it was let down.
After a while, they tried to burn it. Almost all of them carried the old-fashioned lighters. They tried to burn it and they couldn't burn it. It wouldn't catch on fire, and they took out their pocket knives and they tried to cut it, and they couldn't cut it. So they got into a discussion as to how bad a force it must have been to tear this piece of material. And they talked about, whether it came from the inside of the ship or the outside or what, and of course nobody knew where it came from. And while they were talking, I guess they all had their chance to play with it for a while, and it was laying on the table, so I reached over and picked it up. And I played for it probably about 5 minutes. And I tried everything they had done with the wadding it up. When you would wad it up in your hand, you couldn't feel it in your hand. You couldn't feel you had anything there. And it would go to a size that was so small that you'd have to look to see if it was still in your hand. And then when you drop it, it spread out all over the table. It made no noise, no sound of any kind. It was just like, it was nothing. It was like you were meshing air together.
Yeah, that's incredible. Her description of the object, the detail, and, again, just, giving her account of what transpired, and it's funny because I don't believe any of those other firefighters or families from them have came forward, not that I'm aware of, so I find that interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. But whatever that material was, it doesn't sound like tinfoil.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Not at all. Can't be burned, can't be destroyed. Right. And like she said, or I don't know if her father said it, but the impact must have been incredible for it to actually break that apart.
Right.
And again, it's
can
not
you imagine the force that it would take?
Yeah, exactly. But so that's incredible. So let's go ahead and you want to go ahead and get into her last, well, it's not her last statement, but just a statement about what happened once the government found out, town is talking. People are saying, that they have either materials or even information about it because, again, they visited each firefighter, each person who was at that location and made it very clear to them what the situation was and everything else, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It.
I'm not sure what the time span was, maybe 3 days, maybe 4. Could have been less, it could have been more. But I was at home and a car came driving up the driveway, and we had a pretty long driveway. It was a military car. And Mother and I walked to the door. They knocked on the door, and I answered the door, and Mother was beside me, and he told Mother who he was, and that he wanted to talk to the girl that had been down at the fire station. And so she told him it was me. So he came in. And we started to sit down in the living room, and he said, "No, I want you. Go in there in the dining room." You could see the dining room from the living room there. He told Mother to sit at the end of the table, and he told me to sit at the side. He positioned himself across the table, and he told us to sit down, and he stood. And he said, "I understand you were at the fire station the other day." And I told him, yes, I was. And he started out by saying, "I want you to understand that you were never there." And I didn't understand what he meant, because this was kind of not a way of talking that we were accustomed to. And I said, yes, I was there. And he said, no, you weren't. And I said, yeah, I was there. And he had mentioned at first that he wanted to see the one who had seen the piece of material that they had been handling down at the station. And I said, yes, I did handle it. And he started emphasizing, no, you didn't. Well, my mother was pretty strict, and we didn't lie. So I'm insistent that, yes, I saw it, yes, I held it. And he got mad, and the more I insisted I had seen it, he didn't just come out and say, this is not something you're going to be allowed to talk about. He was trying to get it through my head that I never saw it. And he got louder, and he had one of those, looks like a small baseball bat that hooks on the side of your belt, and he took that out, and he's holding it, and he starts beating his hand. Every time he said something, he would hit that on his hand. And he would say, I want you to understand, you were never there. You did not see anything. You did not hear a conversation. And he said, if you can't understand this, there are things that we can do. He asked Mother, he said, can she keep a secret? And Mother said, yes. She said, just tell her what you want her to do. And he said, well, first of all, you got to understand that if you ever talk about this the rest of your life, he said, there are things that we can do, and we'll do them now. We can take all of you kids. We will take you either to Orchard Park or to Artesia. Orchard Park was the German POW camp during World War II, and Artesia was the Japanese POW camp. And he said, but we don't have to do that. We don't even have to let you live. He said, we'd put you in one, we'd put your parents in the other one, but we don't have to do that. He said, we can take you out here in the middle of this desert. He said, no one will ever find your bodies, ever. No one will ever know what happened to you. And so he said, the only way I'm going to let you stay around or live is if you promise you'll never talk about this the rest of your life. So I told him I wouldn't. But that really was pretty much all that was involved. He was probably there at the house maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Mother sent me into the bedroom, and I don't know what he had to say to her afterwards. One of the other military police that was with him stayed in the backyard with the younger kids so they didn't come in the house while he was there. And I never discussed it again until recently. And I'm sorry, someday I will get over it. I haven't yet.
The story is going to end one of these days because there's nobody going to be able to refute it or say anything about it.
Yeah, that's what the government wants. Is the people telling these stories or telling what occurred and what happened, to pass on.
Right.
Yep.
So one thing you said earlier about I don't think any more of the fire department witnesses or their family members have come out, and that might be true, but there are plenty of other witnesses who were either at Roswell or who were family members of, military personnel who were at the crash site. There are plenty of witnesses. So they all corroborate each other's stories. I mean, even in the book, The Day After Roswell, from Frankie Rowe, Marcel Jr., all the other witnesses, their stories are so similar that it's almost like if they were lying, they must have rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed it, like there's just no way.
Yeah. And it's not, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, why would they do that?
If they find a balloon and then these wooden, the wooden structure that held it together along with the foil, and let's say there was some 1947 array technology that they were using to spy or whatever else. Okay, it's just that. It's not. And again, we're not talking about a hot air vehicle. We're talking about a balloon. You know what I'm saying?
Weather balloon.
Yeah, I can see if it was
straight up balloon.
Yeah, exactly. The Goodyear blimp that used to go over Super Bowls and all that they used to have.
Right.
Well, they still have, but it's different now. But imagine something massive that's like 4 houses or a half a stadium explodes, and then you have all this, these articles of plastic, different woods, different stuff that the vehicle is made out of. Yeah, you'd be like, what the hell is this? Is this an alien, spacecraft, or what's going on? But we're talking about, you guys seen the balloons that they're talking about. They actually, the military, I think in the 1980s or 1990s, they go back over showing the actual video or a picture of the balloons, and they are the standard balloon sizes that the supposed Chinese balloons are. So it's not nothing extra special. It's not massive. Yeah, there's a picture that shows these balloons that are on a vehicle, the back of a freaking big rig, but without the bed in the back. It's just flat, to where you put like a lifter on. And so that way they can just launch them. Yeah, so it's a standard balloon with. It
sounds like balloon technology hasn't changed much.
Exactly.
In the last 70 years.
Maybe they're using neoprene or. but yeah. So these highly trained, intelligent officers that have been tasked with some of the world's or the United States' biggest secrets can tell that, a balloon. Again, we're not even talking about the general public now. We're talking about the actual military portion. Now, the general public are like, no, that's not what it was. We can prove it because we actually touched it. We had it, and she didn't see the crash site firsthand, but she saw what her dad brought, or whomever brought that.
And she heard him talking to his coworkers about it. And
Exactly. So it's all very interesting, and then just circles back to it's happening again. Whether it's the balloons that are being shot down, or a balloon was shot down, but then there were 3 other vehicles that were shot down that weren't attached by a balloon, just in case somebody filmed it or whatever else.
Right.
It's some exotic craft that we shot down in the Atlantic, or no, in it was in not the Atlantic. It was in
Alaska?
Alaska, yes, because let's not even get into Alaska, how you cannot go. The only treaty that all the nations have is you cannot go to a certain part of Alaska, because a general supposedly went there, which he said, he went there and he, saw this area of the world that was like California. It was tropical. It was all this stuff. He saw these exotic.
That's in Antarctica, isn't it?
Yes.
And there's like a circle that you can't see it on Google Maps, like they black it out or something.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So who knows where they shot this particular thing down? In Alaska.
Or where was it going?
Yeah. Exactly. Going back home. Inner world beings.
Home base.
Exactly.
I was watching a documentary right before we started recording, and they were saying something. They were basically saying that, because the government has had a history of, shutting these stories down, denying, saying people are crazy, it actually makes people angry because witnesses know what they saw. And when you tell them they're crazy and they didn't see what they saw, that's just going to make them want to tell it more, right?
Oh,
That's
exactly.
just going to make them want to get the truth out there more.
No, for sure.
So,
if you go back to my story, when I was driving in Sacramento, California, headed on 50, headed south, I saw an orb at a high altitude, and I clearly see that it's an orb. You guys go ahead and listen to it. I forgot which episode it's on, but I'll never forget it. I will always, talk about it. You cannot, tell me again, is this U.S. secret technology? I don't know, because of the propulsion system, it was just an orb itself. It was dotting in and out of particular clouds. It wasn't like it was hiding, because it was moving kind of slow as it was going in and out in different clouds. So I'm not sure. And then there's another story that I still haven't told, which something fell to Earth. Didn't crash per se, but it fell behind a store with like a glowing light. So it's very interesting. I gotta tell that one also. But
I have a UFO story that I don't really tell people because, I'm not really sure what I saw. But when I was younger, I was a teenager, and me and my friend both saw it, right? So I know I'm not crazy. We both saw the same thing.
Yeah.
We were standing in her front yard at night, and we just looked up in the sky, and there were two red lasers like streaking across the sky. And it's so hard to explain this, especially without like a visual, but
yeah.
Whatever these things were, they were so far away, and they were going so fast that they were literally leaving a trail behind them. Like it looked like a laser beam going across the sky.
Wow.
But they were moving pretty slow, but from far away it looked like they were moving slow, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one takes off and just shoots away. The other one takes off, shoots away, and then a third one comes from beyond the horizon and shoots, and they were going in such perfect straight lines. And they were so far out of our atmosphere and so far away, it could not possibly have been a human craft, whatever it was. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a craft or a meteor or what, but it had to be, it couldn't have been natural, whatever it was. So
that's incredible. Yeah.
I would love to know what that was.
Yeah, exactly. Was it government technology, or was it alien craft, or an alien craft utilized by our government? So, so it's all intriguing.
And you question yourself when you see these things, because you're like, did I really see that? Like, what is that? Am I making things up? Or is there an explanation that I'm not thinking of? Or, so you don't know. You just don't know what you saw.
Yeah, well, you know what you saw, but then you decide to second guess yourself about, whoa, could that possibly, no. But,
exactly.
But if you saw what I saw, you would say, oh yeah, that's something not of this planet, or not of what I'm aware of, or technology that we currently have. And again,
exactly,
who knows what the technology that the governmental agencies have, to even whether it's a regular plane, right? But it shows as something else. Like, it projects a different type of image, totally,
right.
Not in a sense of cloaking. Cloaking is, it's you can't see it, but actually it looks like a different type of, object or
craft
whatever
than
else.
What it actually is.
So again, we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what the government's keeping from us, and we don't know what kind of technology they actually have, and we don't know. But we can use our common sense to know what we're not capable of, right?
Oh, for sure, not even a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the laws of physics still apply to
exactly.
To Earth.
We haven't figured out a way around that yet. So
exactly. Well, tonight has been a great UAP extravaganza, and sorry we went long. We've never done an episode this long before, but
we didn't even cover half the things we wanted to cover. I mean,
exactly,
there's so much more.
It's so much more, and it's always changing. And the story with David Gresh, I'm pretty sure has tenfold has happened now. CNN has a story, Fox has their story, MSNBC has their story. News Nation is putting out more stuff. The actual interview still has to drop on Sunday. So, it's up to you guys whether or not you want us to revisit this particular subject. But if it steamrolls other things in play, we definitely will be bringing you that information, because, how close are we to disclosure? How close are we to finding the truth? Carolyn, how close do you think we are? Do you think we're close?
Oh, God, it's so hard to say. This was another great line from the documentary I was just watching. We are so used to relying on the government, or at least in the past we were, and it's really not like that anymore. I mean, you even said this earlier. We know what it is. We don't need the government to tell us. We know. They're lying. They keep lying to us. I don't know why, but so in my opinion, it already kind of has come out. we just need them to take that next step so we can actually get an up close look and know for sure what we're dealing with, and what these are. So I think we are close. I think we're right on the verge of getting to the truth on this subject.
I hope so. I don't know what it'll change. I don't know if it'll change our perspective, our technology when it comes to whether something, whether it's from the medical standpoint of cancer treatment to us aging, slower, or
destroying our planet and polluting.
Exactly. Helping out the environment and is the whole thing if aliens come out, they're like, oh, you guys are the reason why we have the ozone problems. I don't know.
Right.
Who knows? We always love to blame other people for our problems. So
I'm sure that would be the government's move.
Yeah.
Once they admit that the aliens are real, they're going to blame them for everything.
Exactly. But okay, so thank you guys for joining us tonight on Strange Darkness Radio. It's been a late one, and
this was such a good topic, and I would love to revisit this in another episode.
For sure. And I just want to tell you guys, see, I wasn't joking when I told you Carolyn was going to be amazing, and her vast knowledge and her research and in-depthness when it comes to these subjects, and just the vigor that she has to go after, this information and stuff, and the subjects that we talk about. And I just want to thank you again. I'm not going to keep thanking you all the time. I will. I'm that type of person. But
no, I love it. Thanks.
For being on the show and all that good stuff, because I know our listeners are enjoying it and getting, an earful of ideas and concepts that, can make them, wander and ponder other, paradigms. And that's what it's all about for us. And in saying all that, I want to leave you guys with something that Carolyn wanted me to put together just to keep hope alive. All right, we're out.
Every newscaster and every newspaper across the nation has made headlines out of it. And this afternoon, we are honored indeed to have here in our studio this man, Kenneth Arnold, who we believe may be able to give us a first-hand account and give you the same on what happened.
I kept looking for their tails. They didn't have any tails. I thought, well, maybe something's wrong with my eyes. They seemed to flip and flash in the sun just like a mirror. I'd be glad to confirm it with my hands on a Bible because I did see it. And whether it has anything to do with our army or our intelligence or whether it has to do with some foreign country, I don't know.
Come up like that and then it tipped and just, really went. It went fast. I've never seen anything go so fast in my life as that thing went. Yeah.
Unlike fighters, they would almost stop in their forward velocity and change 90 degrees, sometimes in their flight path. And within the next 2 to 3 days, we'd had practically all the fighters we could muster on the base up climbing as high as they would climb with guys with binoculars in them, still trying to spot these strange devices flying overhead. And we never could get close enough really to pin them down, but they were round in shape and very metallic looking. And they would come over and do the same maneuvers that we make, except every once in a while one of them would go zip. And you just can't do that in a fight.
Like two saucers, one inverted over the other. They seemed to be made of some kind of polished metal. When I first saw the objects, they were almost overhead. By the time I had the camera ready to go, they had moved to a considerably greater distance.
Blackness of the bay, they're distinct. 6 red coins. When they got closer, we could see that it looked like you were looking down into it, like a hot coal. It came in like this and went out like this. There would be no way of making complete reversal or a 90-degree turn at 12,000 miles an hour or greater without making the occupants juice on the wall. That kind of really shook us up. Looking at the thing shook us up. Nothing could have gotten to that degree of scientific progress without some of the intermediate steps having become public knowledge. We just knew that they were not from this planet.
Since 1947,
we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States.
The point that Sanford put across all too effectively was that they were not real. They were just tricks of the atmosphere. And atmospheric phenomena can't be a threat to national security. You don't shoot at clouds.
And it took off to about probably 4 or 5 meters in the air and then turned on its side and just went zoom straight up so fast that there's just nothing even nowadays that could go that fast.
Why will the United States government withhold information from United States citizens? For what reason?
The Air Force is simply treating the American people like children. They don't trust them with the facts.